Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger. My friends, we got our latest 2x KO patch, and it is, for lack of a better term, the nerf patch. One of the things they've been talking about recently in 2x KO is, hey, characters probably should have weaknesses, which is great, That's how fighting games should work, except for two characters like Yasuo and Ekko, they basically did not have weaknesses. And to be perfectly real, they ran the game. So if you want to check the full patch notes, I'll have those linked for you in the video description. But I just want to talk some interesting things about this patch. One of them you're looking at right now, they added an intro to the game, and a track screen, if you will. So, many classic fighting games of yore, you boot up the game and like the little movie plays, and now 2x KO has a little movie that plays at the beginning. It's not gameplay, it's not necessarily a value add or what, but it's cool. They're going to be adding a lot of stuff over time for 2x KO, and this is the flavor I like to see in fighting games. I remember the Guilty Gear X2 intro. I used to watch it every single time I booted up the game in full. Love that kind of stuff. So that said, now let's talk about some of the more interesting things about this patch. Now, for the patch, there's a lot of interesting things like hitbox, hurtbox, cleanups, just, bug fixes, the usual stuff. But I feel the balance changes are the main event. So let's talk about some of the more interesting ones. So before we talk about some of the more salacious stuff, because the Yasuo nerfs are the real big deal in the real main event, right? Again, this is the nerf patch. So some people who are stronger, like Ahri, right? So Ahri has some small nerfs, and one, she is now an even lower health character. She now has from originally 950 health, she's down to 925 health. And there's other things like Crouch Light, backbone move forward, right? Is now -2 on block, used to be -1. Not a big deal, but there's a lot of things that are just interesting. Air down S1, the projectile is more negative now on block. The block stun's been reduced. They pretty significantly changed how her S1 super works. That's the projectile super. So it doesn't keep you in giant block stun anymore if you successfully parry the move. So now how it works is if you successfully parry the move, it will just dissipate the projectile. It just goes away and you can go in immediately. So you can't just toss it out and see what happens. Again, Ahri's still plenty good, but these are changes, again, to bring down some of the stronger characters just a little bit. Another thing they said about the patch that they wanted going forward, this is even back in the day, right, is removing periods of non-interaction. And Darius is a good example. Is Darius top tier? No, but you can just do things and you just kind of have to deal with it. Well, one of those is forward S2, S2. Before that was a true block string. There's no gap. There's no nothing. There's no counterplay really. I can just do it, tag in, and you just gotta deal, right? So they changed it up a bit. So now it has less block stun. So it's more negative on block. And importantly, there's now a gap there. So if it's done to you and you have something that's actually invincible, you can do something about it. You're not just locked in place and done. And part of some overhead changes, Air S2, this guy here, is no longer an instant overhead. The first hit is now a mid. The second hit is an overhead. So if you're asleep at the wheel, you still get hit overhead. Or if you change your block somehow, but just the first hit in and of itself is not an overhead anymore. So directly following up on that, the philosophy about overheads and unseeable stuff. So Warwick S1 was a nasty little boy, right? Difficult to read overhead, even if it was technically on the slower end of things. The way the animation was just presented, it wasn't obvious, right? So now the move is a frame slower, 25 frames versus 24, and they redid the animation of the move. So it's very clear he's going for the overhead now. So it's not that it can't catch you sleeping. It'll still catch you sleeping. And it's still an overhead from a ridiculous range away, right? Fighting game characters normally shouldn't be able to overhead you from that far away. Half the screen away. Warwick can. But now it's obvious. So if you're on the ball, if you're looking to react, it is now much more reactable because the animation itself has been made much more readable. It's actually something we talked about in a recent video, talking about, overheads of today versus overheads of the past. And now, I guess Fortune smiles on talking about it because it's been changed up. And on top of that, he can no longer crush normals. He could crush some normals, go over the normals. Now he's more on the ground, if you will. And a lot of other things like, Bloodlust, a very core mechanic, right? So Bloodlust now expires quicker than it did before. It's not that it goes away fast, but, it will go away a bit quicker. And then also, just like Darius, again, because we're mentioning that stuff here, Mid-Air S2, that's this guy here, now has a minimum height increase. So before, you could just like instant overhead people, just like Darius, right? And now you gotta like actually jump in and do it. So you can still hit standing people, but you can't be like a pixel off the ground and get your instant overhead going on anymore. So again, just making pain points of things you can't do too much about a bit more readable, a bit more relatable to the common man. So now let's start getting to the main event here, because we got Ekko and Yasuo, and realistically, these two characters run the game. Like, it's not like they're the only viable characters, but if you want to play 2xKO, you just have to deal with them, right? And they've got some nerfs of consequence. I think Yasuo will get hit a lot harder than Ekko, but let's talk Ekko first. So one of the big things Ekko got hit with is just the roll. So the roll is like one of the core parts of the character, always has been, but they fundamentally changed how the roll works. So the roll still has some invulnerability. However, the roll is now projectile invulnerable, not strike invulnerable. What does this mean? This means he can't use this and then the after image follow-up to bully you on your wake up as much, because that means he can avoid wake up supers, he can avoid the universal wake up attack, because this couldn't be hit by it because it was strike invincible. And now that's simply gone. It's not to say he doesn't have pressure, he doesn't have Okazemi on your wake up or whatever anymore, but it's not as oppressive. There is potentially counterplay. He has to play the same game everyone else does now, right? You can also no longer cancel his S2 super with your after image up, which basically removes a lot of shenanigans from the character. And speaking of that too, like just stuff like his air hop, his double jump, if you will, right? Because not a lot of characters get additional air mobility. He can no longer block while doing it. He has to finish the whole animation. So he has to go back into like the jump state before he's allowed to block. So if you catch him at the start of the animation, he's done. Now that said, like if it completes and he finishes it, then yeah, he can still block, right? But he can't block while doing it anymore. He doesn't get that additional layer of like, I can just air dash in and be safe. And he's got a lot of hitbox changes, hurtbox changes, frame data changes that are nerfs. It's all in the patch notes, again, linked in the video description. This video is not meant to be a full patch breakdown, sadly, because I already know this video is late because I've had sleep deprivation. But anyways, lots of nerfs. And he lost more health on top of that, just like Ahri, right? So he's down to 925. Like, it's just a lot of nerfs across the board. And again, this is not even as bad as Yasuo's getting, but you can tell, like, okay, we're taking the edge off the character again, right? Now Yasuo. So Yasuo got hit with the hammer. The demon is defeated? Maybe not, but he's brought back to the realm of the mortals. I remember all the way back when it was like early access, right? And I made the choose a main video. And like, I'm trying to figure out archetypes for the character. An archetype for Yasuo, I'm like, I don't know. Because like, what archetype is he? He can do everything. He's the best in every category. So he can't be rushed down because he obviously got all sorts of mix and craziness. He can't be a zoner or a limb character or footsies because he's got the gigantic normals. He's got zoning, counter zoning. Like he can do everything in the game. He's the most complete character by a mile, right? And I think a lot of people know I was never a fan of the character because he could just do too much. And now, well, we got nerfs. Like, for one, we mentioned Darius, we mentioned Warwick, overhead stuff, right? So jump down heavy is no longer an overhead. This is now a mid. Because they want him to keep mix, but they want it to be like left-right mix-up, not left-right high-low four-way mix, right? Because it's too much. So the instant overhead and just scraping you off the ground, this is a mid now, doesn't work. And we got a lot more nerfs besides that. How about wind wall? What helps him control so much of so many games, right? So wind wall, the duration's been curtailed. It's now out for 2 seconds instead of 3 seconds. And the cooldown between consecutive wind walls is also increased. So you cannot just, I'm mashing a button right now. Once you have wind wall out, there's just more time before you're allowed to wind wall again. And then wind wall, say, into tornado, the other S2, right? So wind wall into tornado, the tornado is out for slightly less time, 1.4 seconds instead of 1.6 seconds. Also, wind wall in the tornado projectile priority is reduced. What does that mean? So what it means is it's still strong. It's not weak or anything, right? You can still use it and get pretty grand results, but it's not the be all end all anymore. Like say Jinx's Zap. So Zap now will go through the whirlwind. It doesn't just stall out. This is like her mini super, right? So you actually get some benefit out of doing it now. The regular wind wall will still stop it. But if it's wind wall into tornado, as it so often is, that won't stop it. Same with Blitzcrank. So Blitz has stand S2, which is a projectile destroying move. And now, Tornado is one of those projectiles that gets destroyed. So Yasuo cannot hide behind it. Blitz has the fist of justice and can actually like play the game against him. And we got a lot of nerfs to his general mix stuff, right? So like calm stance S2, that's the short hop, which led to a lot of shenanigans, right? So the short hop off the stance is now just slower. So it starts up 2 frames slower. It's now 15 frame startup instead of 13 frame startup. Also, the travel height's reduced, so it doesn't necessarily go as high, although it does move a little bit further. Now combine that with jump light and jump heavy have both had their hitboxes reduced. So now it's a little bit more difficult to say get easy cross-ups or just easy gigantic screen control off the short hop. In their own words, they're repositioning him as a strong cross-up character, but weaker high-low, right? So even though this is getting nerfed, but the high-low, like we talked about, jump down heavy becoming like a mid, right? It's not so much that he gets 4-way mix now. Now it's more left-right. Stance heavy now is even more negative than it was before. Again, so the block stun's been reduced by 2. So yeah, there's a lot of nerfs and there's even more in the patch notes. Just to give you an idea, right? Like he got pretty hard. Like even like that jump height change, like stance jump that he'll move further but not as high, and like maybe he can't clear certain characters anymore, right? And to that I say, well, maybe big characters deserve an advantage every now and then. But it's nice that they're realizing that you can't just have a game where only a few people run the game, right? That might work in the old days where we had tons of characters, and then even if only a few characters were playable, you know, it was okay to a degree, but in a game with a smaller roster, it hurts a lot more. And yes, we got more characters coming. We have Akali, we have Senna coming. That's great. Looking forward to those characters. But I'm glad they finally bit the bullet. I know people playing Ekko, people playing Yasuo, I'm sure they're not going to be happy, but you got to enjoy the ride for how it lasted, because you knew this was going to happen eventually. So yeah, again, full patch notes in the video description. Sorry this isn't the usual full patch breakdown, but I'm already late making this video as it is. And I got the Alex Street Fighter 6 patch to come up in a few days, so we'll see how it goes. But I think it's a good direction for the game. It's not a fun patch. Like realistically, it's not very fun unless you play Blitz and then you actually fight Yasuo, right? Or Braum, same deal. It's not a fun patch, but it's one of those where you just had to bite the bullet and get this out of the way for the health of the game. So I'm glad they had the wherewithal to realize it needed to happen and just do it. We'll probably be hearing about Akali soon-ish, and whenever that happens, we'll cover it on the channel. But for now, that's sort of where we're at in 2xKO land, and I think it's probably for the best. That said, my friends, that's it for me, and that's it for the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some 2xKO.